Where the hell have you been?
It's not my fault, I got distracted.
By what?
You could always find something. Come on.
Hello guys and welcome to a brand new video from me, Pickles Park Reviews. Now you're probably wondering what the hell this video even is. You're probably thinking, George, Series 12 wrapped up months ago. Series 12 finished in March. It's now July. What the hell are these reviews coming out for? Well, let me explain. Now those who are watching the channel back earlier in the year will be aware that I reviewed every single episode of Series 12 in review form up until Can You Hear Me? And after Can You Hear Me, I just didn't review the last 3 episodes, Haunting of Villa Diodati, Ascension of the Cybermen, and The Timeless Children. And the funny thing is that I did actually record reviews just like I did for all the other episodes. However, I just didn't end up editing them. One of the reasons was because, spoilers, I wasn't a big fan of The Timeless Children, and I didn't really have much enthusiasm to edit these videos of a series that, with the cloud of The Timeless Children looming over it at that time, I just didn't want to edit those videos because I just didn't feel the enthusiasm for it after that episode. And also, I had other things to think about. I was revising for my GCSEs, which obviously never happened because of coronavirus and lockdown, so that all seems pretty pointless now. Yeah, I just never got around to editing them at that time, although I recorded them. You're probably thinking, well, that was March, it's now July, we've all been in lockdown for months, sat at home doing nothing. You didn't have to go to school, you didn't have to revise for your GCSEs because GCSEs were called off. What the hell are they coming out months after release? Well, the thing is that I actually have been doing other things in lockdown. I've actually been doing a whole new project that is going to be contributing to a new video series on this channel. A big project that I'm really looking forward to making and letting you guys view. And I'm going to be releasing a separate video to actually reveal what the hell I'm even talking about. But if some of you follow me on Instagram, you may already be aware, but I'll just hush on that now. Been making and contributing to this big project over lockdown, which has essentially taken up a substantial amount of space every single day, so I haven't had much time to edit videos. And as I said, after The Timeless Children, I did kind of feel a lack of enthusiasm to edit these videos, so this is why they're only coming out now. And I thought that rather than just release them separately, because that'll be a bit pointless, no one's going to watch that, they're old reviews, I just decided to release them all in an omnibus. I could have just not released them at all, that probably would have been the sensible thing to do and would have saved me hours of pointless editing, but I'm a completionist, even if it's with my own videos. So if I just didn't review the last 3 episodes and my reviews were only up to Can You Hear Me, I would have been a bit annoyed with that myself, OCD and all that, so I decided to release them in this omnibus format so you can hear my initial reviews after the episodes aired. Just a disclaimer, some of my opinions may have slightly changed since those reviews, as it was like months ago, especially with The Timeless Children. I really didn't like that episode. The other 2 reviews for Haunting of Villa Diodati and Ascension of the Cybermen were recorded like a week after the episode aired. With The Timeless Children, it was a day after the episode aired, and I'm fuming in that review. It's not the most professional review you're ever gonna see. I swear a lot in it, I'm really angry, and yeah, I just let loose and just rant. If you thought my resolution rant was bad, wait until you see this. It's probably quite entertaining actually. Some of the things I say in it, I think I say that I think that The Timeless Children ruins previous stories. However, on closer inspection, watching stories, it actually isn't the case. It's actually funny because literally the night after I recorded that, I went and watched Warriors Gate from season 18 because I was doing a bit of a season 18 marathon. I got the box set, and I was so worried that was gonna just taint cars, just be like, I can't enjoy this. Doctors, The Timeless Children, I just can't enjoy this random Tom Baker story. Completely a fallacy. I still enjoyed it. No spoilers for my big project, but that involves watching a lot of Doctor Who, and it has not affected my enjoyment of those stories. So that was more of a worry I had that I expressed in the video, that actually after watching more stories in the months after that, isn't true. It doesn't ruin previous stories. Like I said within the review, that review comes from a place of passion. It was literally the day after it came out, so it's kind of understandable why I'm so annoyed. But obviously if I was to re-record that now, I'd be a lot more chill in it and probably be a bit more professional in the way I review it. It's less of a review and more of a rant per se. It may come across as a bit hostile in that, but trust me, it isn't. I even say in that section that if you like The Timeless Children, that's absolutely fine. I just didn't, and as you'll see, I really didn't like it. But yeah, I'm just a completionist, so even though it's been months since these reviews should have gotten out, I still wanted to put them out there so people could see and hear my thoughts of these episodes after broadcast. And it'd certainly be interesting if my thoughts changed, as I've got some upcoming videos actually about this, all recorded from me now, the present day in July 2020, so to see how my opinions change. I've certainly calmed down a bit on The Timeless Child. I still don't like it, but I've still certainly calmed down. It was actually one of the hardest videos I had to edit, because there's certain bits where I was saying, oh fuck you Chibnall and stuff, which I just edited out of that because it got a bit weird. Essentially, I thought that's not needed, so just stick to the main crux of what I'm actually trying to say and don't go off on weird angry tangents. So yeah, this is just the omnibus of 3 reviews: Haunting of Villa Diodati, Ascension of the Cybermen, and The Timeless Children. So enjoy. I mean, that certainly wasn't the harmless episode I was expecting for their epic 2-part finale. Why did the BBC market their show like this, honestly? Yes, hello everyone and welcome back to another Series 12 review of Doctor Who. This week we're taking a look at the 8th episode of the 12th series of Doctor Who, titled The Haunting of Villa Diodati, featuring the Doctor meeting Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, and the return of the Cybermen, or, well, the return of a Cyberman. Now, there was a lot of controversy leading up to this episode, mainly because it seems to almost redo the Big Finish story, the Silver Turk. Now, for those unaware, the Big Finish did a run of audio adventures featuring the 8th Doctor with Mary Shelley as a companion, and obviously he visits her the night she supposedly can see Frankenstein, and she meets a Cyberman in a story, The Silver Turk, which is where she apparently got the idea for Frankenstein from. And it's quite a well-regarded audio. I haven't heard it personally myself, however it's quite well-regarded and apparently it's very good. So obviously there was a bit of something going into this episode. Some people were unsure, like, oh, we're kind of redoing this again. Obviously we didn't know the Cybermen were going to be in this, however the BBC Twitter account essentially spoiled it, not only saying, oh, the big reveal, there's going to be a big reveal in this. Cheers BBC. And then obviously them literally tweeting, remember Jack's warning, beware the lone Cyberman, don't give it what it wants. You know, cheers BBC. There's something strange going on in this episode. I wonder if it's gonna be the lone Cyberman, what you literally told me I should look out for before the episode aired. Cheers, great marketing. To be honest, I quite enjoyed this episode. I think it starts very well, and for the first 37 minutes, I thought it was really good, like really properly very good. However, I think it does take a dip at the end, unfortunately, and I don't think the Cybermen are, or the Cyberman is work quite as well as everyone else seems to think, in my opinion. However, it certainly wasn't a bad episode. I thought it was quite good, especially the main bulk of the episode, revolving around Mary Shelley, Byron in the house. I thought that was very engaging, and I thought it certainly was an improvement over last week's pretty horrendous episode. Just a quick synopsis. Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, Miss Claremont, Dr. Polidori, and Percy Shelley, maybe, or he should be. They're all at Villa Diodati enjoying their time. It's the night where supposedly the idea of Frankenstein was conceived. And what do you know? The Doctor and co turn up to get in on the action and have a bit of fun. However, something isn't quite right. As I said, Percy Shelley should be there, but he isn't. Where is he? That's not supposed to happen. And the house starts turning against it. Various parts of the skeleton are reanimated. Supposedly ghosts appear. They're in a labyrinth of the house where you can't escape. People are walking through walls. All various stuff. All revealed to be Percy, who is in fact in the cellar. Now, it turns out that this Cybermen does not want to be found, which I found pretty interesting, and that it's gone into Shelley. There's this thing called the Cybermen. It contains data about the cyber race, blah blah blah, and he picks it up and it doesn't want to be found. It injects itself into him and it's inside him, and he is essentially invisible because the Cybermen doesn't want to be found. So essentially Shelley manipulates it to try and keep them inside the house and to stop the Cyberman who's trying to get the Cybermen from coming in, which explains all the walking through walls, the not being able to escape, the reanimated objects. And the lone Cyberman does get in, and it turns out the Cybermen is going to destroy Shelley. So the Doctor kind of is in a lose-lose situation, because if Shelley's going to die if he keeps the Cybermen, and the only person who can take it out is the Cyberman. So she'd essentially be giving the Cyberman what it wants. But then on the other hand, if she does that, then the cyber army will rebuild itself. You know, can she really do that? But then also, you know, if she lets Shelley die, then that'll send ripples through time, as Professor McCoy would always say. So she's put in a bit of a lose-lose situation here, which somehow isn't actually the core crux. What ends up being the core crux is the Doctor somehow, despite the fact she's saying she didn't know how to before, takes the Cybermen out of Shelley and puts it into herself, and then the Cyberman's like, come here, give it to me or I'll put an army. And without even seeing the army, the Doctor just says, yeah, I'll give it to you because the world can't end in this year. So essentially a similar concept. The Cyberman has what it wants, and the Doctor now has to go to the far future to stop the cyber army from rebuilding and fix the mess that she started. This episode obviously involves Mary Shelley, who obviously wrote Frankenstein, and another poet, Lord Byron, you know, Percy Shelley, all these different poets. Now, thankfully, I'm quite aware of the likes of Lord Byron and Percy Shelley, because they're in my bloody GCSE poetry anthology curriculum for English. So, obviously, I know who these people are. However, I feel that if you didn't know who they are, or you had very limited knowledge of who these people were, which I think, you know, if this came out when I was a bit younger, you know, around, well, essentially before 2018, if this came out before 2018, then I really would have been struggled to really engage in the story, I think, because I didn't really know who Mary Shelley was. I had no idea who Percy Shelley or Lord Byron were at all. I struggled to invest myself in the story because I don't think it does an amazing job at explaining a lot about the historical figures and what they did. I think it almost presumes you're familiar with their work, which, you know, in the case of myself, I am familiar with their work, so I was quite engaged in the story. However, I almost feel like if you weren't so familiar, and even to the extent which I imagine some kids were, they don't even know who the likes of Percy Shelley or Lord Byron were, then I imagine it would have confused you quite a lot, because I don't think it explains it that well. Obviously, it's not really a criticism for me because I know who they are, so I just enjoyed the story, but I just thought it was just something to mention because I don't think this episode is as good an episode as Vincent the Doctor, for example, or The Unquiet Dead, or even Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror earlier on in the series, for really introducing you and explaining who a historical figure is. I think they just kind of presume you know them. And as I said, I'm familiar, so I didn't really mind that, but I imagine if you weren't so informed, then I imagine you have been struggling to really engage yourself in the story, at least to start with. You have been a bit confused. Thought actually that the portrayals of all the historical figures in this were really interesting actually. Really good. I thought they were all compelling. I don't think there's a particularly bad actor in sight, and they all seem like they bought into their roles. Even, you know, smaller roles such as Miss Claremont, you know, Polidori, they all seem pretty invested in the characters they were portraying, and were really invested in those historical figures, even if they weren't major roles. I still think they all felt very close to the time. They felt like they were ripped straight out of the time period, which is always good, and they really embodied those characters, so I think that was certainly a plus. And I think it certainly makes the early part of the episode quite engaging, but I think a lot of people mainly remember this episode because of the end, and unfortunately this always seems to happen when you have a Doctor Who episode with a big reveal at the end. I feel like it happened in a lesser extent to Spyfall Part 1. I think it happened in a bigger extent than this in Fused to Village Dune. You all know I wasn't a big fan of that story, everyone else seems to absolutely love it, but I feel that this does sort of happen, and you even go back to an episode such as Hellbent, when people are like, oh, new Sonic Screwdriver, 10 out of 10 episode, you know, that kind of thing. I think if there's something that's revealed at the end, people always love it and kind of forget the rest of the episode. I'd say that to a lesser extent this slightly happened here, where it's because, oh my god, there's a Cyberman at the end. People kind of forgot the main crux of the story, Mary Shelley and the house. And I think it's certainly a different instance here to something like Hellbent, mainly because I actually preferred the stuff with Mary, the first part of the episode, than the stuff with the Cyberman at the end, which I know is probably an unpopular opinion. But everyone seems to be going on about the Cyberman, but personally, if I was to praise this episode, which I'm going to praise this episode a little bit, I think that it should be praised for the first half, the first 30-35 minutes, because I think that's where it's its best. Like I said, I think it introduces us to all our historical figures and gives them a reason for them all to be there. We've got an episode like Orphan 55 where I don't think all of the characters need to be there. Like, you could be blind, deaf and not watch the episode and still know that there are too many characters in that story. However, in this, and I guess it was almost similar to Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror in that sense, another historical story which you all know I really liked, where the balance is a lot of supporting characters. They all feel like they have a reason to be there and they all have a good character. And I said, even if I don't think that all of the historical figures were really explained as to who they are, I feel like the performances were very good, and as I said, they all had a reason to be in the story, they all had things to do, they all had a character, which was nice. Idea of the house changing, it becoming a labyrinth, things reanimating. I thought that certainly lent itself to a really creepy atmosphere and a very intriguing story. A horror story with some sci-fi mixed in. That's always the best way to do it with Doctor Who. They've attempted to do that a lot. Haunted house, but there's sci-fi. And in the last few years you've got a story like Knock Knock, and then you've also got a story like Hide. All quite similar, I guess, when you think about it, because there's this old house, something strange is going on, and then at the end it's revealed it's aliens. It's a bigger sci-fi concept at play, which is certainly the thing for Hyde. It's revealed that it's all about time travel and pocket universes rather than an old-fashioned ghost story. And Knock Knock, I haven't watched that episode since it aired. I've only seen that episode once, but I remember there being some sci-fi element to do with David Suchet and his daughter slash mum. Yeah, that wasn't a good story, was it? This does riff on similar ideas put in episodes like Hyde, the 11th Doctor story Hyde, and the 12th Doctor story Knock Knock. And I think it probably does it the best out of all of them. I do quite like Hyde, actually. I think that episode doesn't get enough credit. I think that is kind of creepy. And again, like this one, it does have a really good supporting cast. You know, you've got Douglas, got Jessica Rain. But I think that episode isn't quite as creepy as this one. It doesn't quite have that same chilling atmosphere, because I think a lot of the stuff in that episode is more character driven. There's a lot of, I think what I like that episode is there's a lot of really good character stuff between the Doctor and Grey Scott and Clara and Jessica Rain, and Clara and the Doctor in that scene where she's like, we're all ghosts to you. But I think that, I'm going off on a really weird tangent here. I think in that episode, the character stuff is what I really like, and I think the whole idea of the house and the ghosts almost takes a bit of a backseat, and obviously the reveal of it's not a ghost story, it's a love story, kind of undermines that a bit, which is why it's not as good an episode, which I think it really could have been. And Knock Knock, it's just a bit crap, unfortunately, from what I remember where I watched it back in 2017. This episode certainly does the whole, it's a house and scary things are going on, and at the end it's a big sci-fi twist, the best out of those 3 stories. I'm fascinated with the idea of the labyrinth as well. I thought that was a really interesting idea. I liked it when Graham's looking for the toilet and you just keep going around in circles. I thought that was quite a funny moment. I think that all works pretty well. I thought the idea of, you know, going through walls and it all revealed to kind of be just an illusion to try and get them to stay in the house and not go outside and keep the Cybermen out. I thought that was quite well done, actually, especially on the second watch, because it all kind of comes like information being thrown at you on the first watch. However, on the second watch, I do think it works quite well. Really liked the first half and the main bulk of the episode involving the house. As I said, it's creepy, it's got good ideas, all the historical figures, good performances, good characters, all have a reason to be there. The TARDIS team are on fire. I think they're all really good, Graham and some funny moments. And as I said, it's a really good episode. However, contrary to popular opinion, I feel, because as I said before, everyone's raving about this, the Cyberman is really where it lets it down for me. First, why does the Doctor, as soon as you see it, refer to it as a lone Cyberman? This is a really the nittiest of nitpicks here. But it just seems such a weird thing. She said it's a Cyberman rather than it's a lone Cyberman. It just feels like, I know that's because what they're trying to tag this Cyberman is, oh, it's the lone Cyberman, like what Jack said earlier on in Fugitive of the Judoon. However, it makes sense for the companions to say it's a lone Cyberman, but it just feels odd for the Doctor to instantly call it a lone Cyberman rather than just a Cyberman. It's my same problem with World Enough and Time, where the Doctor's firstly saying, he's like, it's a Mondasian Cyberman, you know, just refer to it as a Cyberman. That feels more natural, and just they're trying to tag this version of a Cyberman as something. It just felt a bit unnatural, but as I said, that's the nittiest of all nitpicks. Mainly is because they tried to do this idea with the Cyberman that he's partially converted, he's emotional, and while I can't deny that the look is fantastic for the Cyberman, whoever put that costume together, round of applause, because it looks terrific. The mask, the different parts of all different Cybermen fused together. You know, you've got the torso, which is a combination of the Nightmare and Silver Cyberman and the Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel Cyberman. The helmet, which I believe is almost an entirely new helmet design, which looked rather well with the part of the exposed face. You know, part of the arm is just, you know, like a human hand, and overalls similar to the 10th Planet Cybermen. I thought it looked really creepy, and if you're trying to make a Cyberman look creepy, yeah, that's how it's done. My main problem with the lone Cyberman is, this is going to sound really weird because I've said how the Cybermen have become too emotionless over the last few years, is particularly in the new series when compared to the classic series. And I think you get an episode where, in World Enough and Time, where the Cybermen feel a little bit more emotional, and it works so much better and they're so much more creepy. However, and this may sound weird and hypocritical, the Cyberman in this episode was, dare I say, too emotional. Yeah, I know, that may sound ridiculous because of my previous criticisms with the new series Cybermen. However, I just feel that the look was fantastic, as I said before, but the performance from Patrick O'Kane, and I imagine it wasn't his fault, I imagine he was directed or told by Chris Chibnall or the director Emma Sullivan to do this. but he just felt like your generic, angry, evil man dressed up as a Cyberman. He didn't feel like a Cyberman to me, and I guess after, you know, I guess it hasn't been that long, but in terms of, it's been 3-4 years since we got the last appearance of the Cybermen in The Doctor Falls, and despite the fact that really episode wise it hasn't been that long, you know, it's been one series in between their appearance, it has been 3 years, and I almost just wanted a regular Cyberman. I think the idea of a partially converted Cyberman is a good one, and they certainly went to town with it with the look. However, I just don't think they made enough of that. You know, how creepy could a partially converted Cyberman be? I don't think it really feels like a partially converted Cyberman. It just feels like an angry dude who's just getting angry. And he's just angry for the sake of being angry. He's just evil for the sake of being evil. He's like, I will get you, Doctor! And all this, like, well, we'll go away with everyone for you meddling kids, that kind of thing. I just felt it was a bit disappointing, seeing as how good it looked. The performance was just so emotional to the fact that it didn't feel like a Cyberman to me. It just felt like a generic angry man. And I didn't feel a threat for that. Like I said, the design of the Cybermen looks so creepy. But the Cyberman itself wasn't creepy because I felt like the performance was just so over the top and just so emotional and so generic that it was impossible to find it scary. That had the Mondasian voice, for example, the I waited for you, that kind of weird sing-songy voice. That would have been so much more creepy combined with this Cyberman design than the like, Doctor, I will do what I want, that kind of thing, which I don't think worked at all. So yeah, while the design of the Cyberman was hella creepy and was really good, the performance just let it down for me. And as I say, I don't think in terms of narrative wise, enough was made of the partially converted Cyberman. I know why they did it, because it ties into the whole Frankenstein thing, but like the look went to town with a partially converted Cyberman, but narratively I just don't think it played enough of a part and seemed kind of pointless, and the performance was too generic. It had its scenes, like when it just silently snaps that neck of that nurse. Ooh, that was chilling. But I just think that the performance was just too emotional and too angry to really seem like that much of a threat. And like when it's roaring, that was kind of laughable. Now I said the look looks fantastic, but you needed a performance that matched the creepiness of that look, and I just don't think you got that. The ending I want to talk about as well. I really like the dilemma of saving Shelley or saving the universe. The only way to save Shelley is giving the Cyberman the Cyberium, because he's the only one who can take it out of him, but she's giving the Cyberman what it wants. However, if she lets Shelley die, yes, it's stopping the Cyberman army from rebuilding, but the ripples sent from letting Percy Shelley die will be devastating. And I like the idea of one life versus millions, you know, you've got to keep time in check. I love all that stuff. It reminds me back to episodes like Father's Day, where they talk about, you know, one man, just one death can send ripples. I love that stuff, you know, it's the whole butterfly effect thing. That is a really good dilemma. It's the dilemma that thinks like, yes, the Doctor's been warned about this by Jack. Yes, she shouldn't do this, but she really hasn't got any choice because she's got to keep time in check. I like all that stuff. I think that's really good. And it makes a really, really good dilemma. And Doctor's actions seem really well realised and really genuine. And the companions' reactions with Ryan wanting them to let Shelley die to stop the creation of the cyber race felt genuine as well, and the little friction they had. Good stuff. I love that element, and I thought that was such a good way to give the Cyberium to Cyberman despite being warned. Such a good moral dilemma there. I thought it was brilliant. But they go and spoil it, because despite it being established that the Cyberman's the only one who can take it out of Shelley, the Doctor then just takes it out of Shelley, and rather than it being in Shelley, it's in her. And the Cyberman's like, give it back to me, Doctor, or I summon an army. And an army just briefly appears. You don't even really see it. It's just a ship randomly comes out of void, and the Doctor's like, oh, this cyber army which I've never seen before, I've got to give it to you now. And that felt cheap and unearned, and such a disappointment because of how good the dilemma was before, that they then didn't want to go with that brilliant dilemma and changed it to go with a less enthralling dilemma, which doesn't even make sense. I felt like the Doctor would have just said bring it on, rather than just say yeah, whatever. And I think that this cheapens it somewhat. It's not so clear to see why the Doctor did it. And yeah, it annoys me because they had such a good dilemma, and then for some reason they just don't decide to go with that and go with a weaker dilemma. And there's another reason why this makes no sense, which no one has really spoken about, and it's the fact that how does this lone Cyberman even have an army to call upon? Because if we think about it, it's damaged, it's a lone Cyberman, and it wants the Cyberium to rebuild the cyber army, which has all been destroyed. Yet it has an army. What? How can he have an army if the whole point he wants the Cyberium is because he doesn't have an army and it needs to be rebuilt? This made no sense. This is such a plot hole. It's the plot hole of all plot holes. How can he have a cyber army if the whole point is that he doesn't have a cyber army and wants to rebuild it? That's the whole reason he has a Cyberium. It just annoys me because that's such a plot hole. There's such an unconceivable plot hole, because he shouldn't have an army, because the whole reason that he wants the Cyberium is because he doesn't have an army, yet you show him having an army. Like, that makes no sense at all. But it could have been so easily avoided because they had such a good moral dilemma before, yet they just went away with that and chose to have a moral dilemma which is not only weaker but also makes no sense. So the ending slightly disappoints me because they had such a good moral dilemma and they went for one that is not only weaker but one that actually makes no sense at all. Let's talk about some characters then. Let's talk about Percy Shelley, Lewis Rayner. He wasn't in it much, to be honest, but yeah, I thought he was pretty decent for what he got. I think he sold Scared very well. He sold the kind of being distraught at being invisible and the pain and sorrow he's feeling to have to hide it, and the fear he feels of the Cyberman. I thought he sold it really well. As I said, as one of the biggest historical figures in this being Percy Bysshe Shelley, he doesn't get a lot to do. However, that is obviously in service of the story. However, Lewis Rayner, yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. We've also got Dr. Polidori, Maxim Baldry. Yeah, he was alright as well. I thought he was pretty decent as Polidori. I don't really know anything about Polidori, but yeah, he seemed fine. He seemed quite very convincingly confrontagious when he's going to fight Ryan, and I thought that he played Scared quite well. There's a funny scene where he doesn't want to go in there, where he's with Graham and Miss Claremont. So yeah, he was pretty good as well. Nadia Parks as Miss Claremont, the lover of Lord Byron, and she's obviously feeling a bit of a complex because she doesn't know whether Lord Byron loves her, and Lord Byron seems to not really love her. I don't really know why he doesn't love her, because let's be honest, Miss Claremont is gorgeous. Can't believe I just said that. I think she plays it really well for such a small part. When I said about a performance being very convincing even in a small role, this is kind of what I was talking about. Nadia Parks is Miss Claremont, because she brings real emotion to the character, and real sorrow. I thought was really convincing, and she was very intelligent and just a very all-round very good character. And also you feel a bit sorry for her because she's clearly being used by Byron here, but yeah, I thought she was quite a nice character. We've got Jacob Collins Levy, Lord Byron. Now obviously Lord Byron, he's like the character that everyone wants to be with, you know. Doesn't matter if you're a boy, doesn't matter if you're a girl, most likely you were attracted to Byron, which is what legend has it. Obviously I learned all about that when doing I had to study She Walks in Beauty for my English Poetry Anthology GCSE. Why I say I did have to study, I am studying at GCSEs. just around the corner was pretty good. I thought that he could have been a very caricature-y character. The fact that he's all like, oh yeah, a very unlikable character, but I thought he was very suave, and I just thought he brought a good deal to this character. Like I said, could have been a very stereotypical, you know, not very likable character, and he wasn't particularly likable, but he just seemed very suave. I like the scene where he hides behind Miss Claremont and uses her as a shield, and he does almost want to get with the Doctor. I thought that was pretty interesting, mainly because a man wanting to get with a Doctor, and now she's a woman, hasn't actually been explored yet. And obviously it's understandable why that has been the case, you know, as the Doctor's only just become a woman, as the first female Doctor. They wanted to ease it in a bit. They kept her mainly, you know, a genderless personality, I guess. The first Doctor does, she doesn't particularly have a particularly feminine personality, which I think is all the better for her. I don't think the Doctor is ever a particularly masculine character, so there's no way to make the Doctor very feminine now as a woman. The Doctor has a pretty genderless personality. This is the first time where her gender in terms to someone coming on to her has actually been addressed, and yeah, I think enough time has passed that you can start implementing that into stories. I thought that was quite funny. I'm glad they didn't get together. But yeah, I thought that was quite funny. Thought he was just pretty good, and he took a character that could have been very caricaturist and made it quite a real and suave character. Lily Miller playing Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, or Mary Shelley. She was referred to Mary Shelley in the episode. I didn't know that she referred to herself as Mary Shelley even before they were married. Thought that was quite interesting. Didn't know that, I must say. Thought she was really good as well. Mary Shelley isn't in it as much as you would have thought. It's not like, oh, this is Mary Shelley's episode, like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror was very clearly centered on Tesla. It's not as focused on Mary Shelley and her writing about Frankenstein as I thought it would be going into this. However, I still thought that her performance was really good, particularly at the end when she's confronting the Cyberman. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. We've got the TARDIS team. Yaz, Graham and Brian. Yaz doesn't get an amazing amount to do in this episode, actually. On a first watch, I thought she got a fair bit to do, but on a second watch, she didn't have as much to do as I thought. Amanda Gill's pretty good. She's been pretty good this series. There was a bit of implication that perhaps she loves the Doctor. I know that was the whole rumour in Series 11. They seem to die down on it in this series, almost more hinting at a connection between her and Ryan than her and the Doctor. However, it seemed that she was very much talking about the Doctor in this instance rather than Ryan, which I think is interesting. To be honest, I hope they don't get together. You know, I don't like the Doctor being romantically involved. I hated it when it's with Rose in Series 2. So here, mainly because it's not as obnoxious as in Series 2, and the Doctor doesn't seem to be into it. However, this is almost a problem because it hasn't really been hinted at in any other stories to a big effect. So if it is actually a thing, seemingly come out of nowhere, and if it isn't a thing, why is it in this episode? It felt like a very weird thing to chuck in there, but maybe they're setting up, I don't know. It just kind of came out of nowhere, but yeah, Man Girl's alright. Posted goal was Ryan. I thought he was better in this episode, actually. I thought he was a lot better in this episode, like when he's confronting Polidori, and then when he's like, oh, Yaz, something touched me, and Yaz is like, it was my elbow, and he's like, I knew that. Yeah, Tosingo, I thought he was pretty decent in this episode. He had some good scenes. Graham is easily the best one out of the TARDIS team, though. He has a lot of comic relief scenes, and he just has a lot more to do in this episode. And when the Doctor's off doing her thing, he teams up with some other people. And as I said, mainly he's just down to comic relief in this episode, but he does have some funny scenes, like where he thinks the people are ghosts, which they turn out to be ghosts. Bit of a weird reveal, to be honest. They didn't really tie in, felt a bit lazy, but that was all nice. I like his reaction to Polidori walking through walls. I like the scene where he's trying to find the toilet and he just loops back. I like the scene at the start where he tries talking posh. I thought he was really good, Bradley Walsh, in this, even if he's only used for comic relief. We have the Doctor, then Jodie Whittaker. I thought she was really good in this episode, actually. She was very engaging and embodied the Doctor well. It was a performance similar to Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, and I certainly think her Doctor suits the historical stories quite well. I thought the comedy was pretty good. She seemed well up for talking, you know, to Mary Shelley and talking about Frankenstein. She's clearly a big fan of Mary Shelley's work and poets in general, which I thought was quite a nice touch. And yeah, I was very involved in the story, very compelling, did the comedy very well, did the serious scenes really well. She really sold the scene where she's telling Ryan no. Speaking about the moral dilemma, I thought she handled that very well, and I thought her interactions with the Cybermen were nice with the Cyberman. It wasn't like her interactions with the Dalek in Resolution, which I thought was painful. Here it was quite nice, and she seemed to have a bit of a respect for the Cyberman and actually acknowledges and performs like it's a really big threat. That when she's like, I will not lose anything to that, which is clearly referencing people like Bill and Adric. Yeah, I thought Jodie Whittaker was just very good in this episode. She's really found her feet as the Doctor. To quick talk about the music and the direction. I criticised Emma Sullivan's direction last week. It looked good for sure, and she tried to get the best out of those crappy looking Laser Quest sets from last week. However, the story wasn't that good to follow. However, this episode is very much easier to follow, and her direction is really good. Her shots are really nice. I think she frames the Cyberman really nicely, and I think just generally she made that episode feel quite creepy, a good atmosphere, and yeah, I just think her direction was very good for this episode. And the music for Second Akinola, for the most part, I thought was really good, and it had some really dark undertones which I thought were very nice. And just overall, I thought it was very good. One of his best episodes he scored this series. I'm not a fan of what seems to be the new cyber theme, the dun 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 dun. It just feels very bombastic and over the top, which I almost feel something he seems to do for. Now, he did it with the Daleks. That Dalek theme was very over the top as well and very obnoxious. This one seems to be as well. So I'm not a fan of what he seems to be doing here. His work on the Masters theme, I prefer that kind of understated, like, theme for villains personally. So other than the Cyberman theme, which I thought was a bit bombastic and a bit over the top, his music was pretty good. As overall, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, what did I think? It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think for most of this episode is very good. I really enjoyed it. However, the last few minutes just kind of let it down for me. I think the whole idea, all the historical figures are really well represented. Good performances all around, even for people like Polidori and Claremont, who don't get as much to do. I think they all have really good characters, they all are good, well performed, and all have a reason to be there. I think the idea of the house being creepy is an idea explored in an episode like Hyde and Knock Knock. However, it's done best in this episode. I like the idea of the labyrinth walking through walls, things being reanimated, and I like the idea of the Cyberman coming in. I like the idea of Percy Shelley actually manipulating it to hide the Cyberium. However, the problems, weirdly, are with the Cybermen. The design is stellar, and it's easily the creepiest the Cybermen have looked. However, it's just not backed up by a creepy performance. I think it's too emotional and too generic, and too much of a generic angry villain of the week, rather than like a Cyberman. It just felt too emotional. I wanted the Cybermen to be a bit more emotional than they usually portrayed, but more in the vein of the Mondasians. Less like this, which is just an angry man, essentially. I didn't think it was very scary. I think the whole dilemma at the end, where choosing between letting Percy live or the whole universe from the Cyber Wars, was a very compelling dilemma. However, unfortunately, they switched that to a less compelling dilemma, which is let a cyber army come in or let the universe survive. And I think the whole plot hole of him having an army, despite the fact that the whole point of him as a character is that he's a lone Cyberman and wants the Cyberium because he doesn't have an army, was just such a big plot hole that really takes you out of the episode. It makes no sense. Overall, this episode has good points, it has bad points. I really enjoyed this episode. However, a lot of the stuff with the Cyberman, it's just frustrating, I think, more than anything. However, I will give it a 7.5 out of 10. The bulk of the episode is very good. However, the last few minutes with the Cybermen are just annoyingly poor. The portrayal of the Cyberman, and particularly that plot hole at the end where he has an army despite the whole reason of his character wanting the Cyberium is that he doesn't have an army. That's just too much of a big plot hole to ignore, really, which is a shame. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. For the main part, it was pretty good. Next week, the adventure continues. While this episode was marketed as the story before the epic 2-part finale, it very much seems like the first part of the epic 3-part finale, as we see the first part, technically second part of the finale, Ascension of the Cybermen. The Doctor travels to the far future to fix her mistake she made in this episode and stop the Cyber Army from rebuilding. Will she survive? Will she complete her goals? We'll find out next week. Ascension of the Cybermen then. Very intrigued. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and drop some and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. More Series 12 reviews will be on the way for the next 2 episodes, so stay tuned for that. But yes, thank you guys for watching, and of course, a goodbye. For an episode called Ascension of the Cybermen, it didn't really understand the Cybermen too well. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Doctor Who review of Series 12. This time we're taking a look at the penultimate episode of Series 12 titled Ascension of the Cybermen, written by Chris Chibnall. Now last week's episode, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, I consider part of this finale, despite the fact it's written by Maxine Alderton and not Chris Chibnall. The BBC seem to be pushing this as a 2-part finale, however when you really think about it, the events of last week really shaped the events of this one. Therefore I feel like The Haunting of Villa Diodati is actually the first part of a 3-part finale. It's quite similar to Utopia in that sense. So I was very hesitant before watching this episode, mainly because if you watched my review last week, the main thing I didn't like about it was the Cybermen. I enjoyed pretty much everything else, but the portrayal of the Cyberman and the lone Cyberman just didn't really float my boat, and it had a few plot holes. So going into this episode, which was mainly based around the Cybermen, I was a bit hesitant, and obviously it's written by Chris Chibnall, who, as you probably know, I'm not a big fan of. Now, I think he hit gold when writing The Master in Spyfall, however I think that was more down to Sacha Dhawan's brilliant performance, although there were a few good Master moments in that story, so I probably shouldn't take it too much away from him. However, you all know by now, if you've been around this channel a while and been watching my Doctor Who reviews, that I really wasn't a big fan of how he wrote the Dalek in Resolution. Therefore, he's kind of at odds with writing classic villains for me. He hit gold with the Master, but he was pretty shite when writing the Dalek, I think it's fair to say. So the Cybermen, I was a bit nervous going into it because obviously I wasn't a big fan of how it was portrayed in The Haunting of Villa Diodati, and I wasn't sure how Chris Chibnall was going to take that Cybermen, which was written by Maxine Alderton, into his story. Just a quick synopsis. After the events of The Haunting of Villa Diodati, the Doctor has taken Percy Shelley's coordinates and found a group of the last humans on the run from the last of the Cybermen. They're going to somewhere called the Boundary, where apparently it's a gateway to another universe where you can escape the Cybermen. The Doctor wants to help and destroy the Cybermen, however after a group of drones come in, the group gets separated. The Doctor and Ryan are off with some kid, and Yaz and Graham are off with a group of rebels. Now, Yaz and Graham and the group of rebels end up losing power on their spaceship and end up going into a war carrier, a ship that they hope to take control of and use it to get to the barrier. However, it soon is revealed that that is a cyber ship held with billions of Cybermen. So things aren't looking too good for them. The Doctor, however, gets to the barrier. However, it is revealed that that is Gallifrey. It's a route to Gallifrey. Seemingly an entrance to the bubble universe where Gallifrey was stored in the Day of the Doctor, which I actually called while watching the episode, so bonus points for me. and the Master hops out saying everything is about to change forever. And also, in amongst that story is a weird plot about some kid named Brendan who is an Irish police officer who seemingly cannot die, and there's an old man at the end and gets some sort of electroshock therapy that seems to be linked to the Chameleon Arch and the Time Lords. It's a bit of a jumble, this story. However, I think it has a good pace. The first few minutes are very action-packed, I do think. And like I said, I think it has a good pace to it. However, unfortunately, when you look at it, the Cybermen don't really do much. The people who are actually killed are from the cyber drones, who, I'll get out of the way, look ridiculous. I would have much preferred if it was just general ships, or even flying Cybermen or Cybermats. I know a lot of people don't like the flying Cybermen, but I think it would have been much better than floating heads, and I would have preferred the Cybermats. To be honest, they just looked a bit daft, and those cyber drones were the only ones to really do much apart from the lone Cyberman killing one guy. Cybermen just didn't really do much, considering this episode is called Ascension of the Cybermen. They run after the Doctor a bit and then decide not to and run after Graham and Ryan instead, and obviously the big run of marching Cybermen and all the new Cybermen add a lot to the cliffhanger. However, I just don't think for an episode that's called Ascension of the Cybermen, I don't really feel like they're in it that much, and I don't really feel like much of a threat. And I don't think that's because there were 3 Cybermen. You've seen an episode like Dalek where one Dalek is scary as hell. I think they just didn't seem like much of a threat because they didn't really do much. Similar to Victory of the Daleks, when the new Daleks don't really do much, and that's why they're not really scary. It's the same here. And I think this episode really mishandles the Cybermen in terms of doing a Cyberman story. Now, we've heard about cyber wars in the past, however, we actually get to see one here, or at least the aftermath of it, and I think this episode really misses the point of what makes a cyber war so interesting. Now, for me at least, what makes a cyber war so interesting and what's so much more interesting than a Dalek war, for example, or a Sontaran war, is because the Cybermen should be undefeatable, because the more troops you lose, the more troops the Cybermen gain. It's the ultimate war that you can't win, because every time you lose a soldier, they will gain one. So ultimately, there's no way of stopping the Cybermen, hence why in Nightmare in Silver, at the end, they destroyed the planet. Now, whether you like that ending or whether you didn't, I think now, after thinking about it a bit more, it definitely really adds to the idea that the Cybermen cannot be stopped. However, in this episode, we see the last of the humans and the last of the Cybermen. I don't really think these two things really mix, to be honest. If the humans are... If you have the last of the humans, then the Cybermen should be thriving. If you've got a lot of humans, the Cybermen really shouldn't be thriving. I don't think you can have the last of the humans and the last of the Cybermen, because the Cybermen shouldn't be trying to wipe the humans out. This is a thing, and it's my main problem with this story and this finale as a whole. And it's not just this story, it's a problem I have with a lot of Cybermen stories, especially in recent years. And it's the fact that they're trying to turn them into the Daleks. The Daleks' whole thing is that they want to exterminate every bit of life that isn't them. They want to destroy the universe. They are only interested in the Daleks and the Daleks alone. Anything that isn't Dalek needs to be killed and exterminated. That's their whole thing. However, the Cybermen are different from the Daleks in a fundamental way. The Daleks are interested in destroying all life. However, the Cybermen are much more interested in preserving it. The Cybermen don't want to destroy life. They want to let it thrive, let it grow. And in their eyes, the best way for it to thrive and survive is to become Cybermen, because they are the ultimate beings. They are how humans will survive. The Cybermen are all based on survival, and in a twisted way, they think they are helping the humans, helping them to survive. That's what makes the Cybermen so interesting and what makes them so different to the Daleks. However, in recent years, and unfortunately it's the main crux of this story, is that the Cybermen are just essentially Daleks. They just want to destroy everyone. They want to destroy all the humans without giving it a second thought of whether actually they should be converting them. And according to the lone Cyberman, he wants the Cybermen to destroy the universe and become the supreme beings of all creation. that sounds a lot like the Daleks and doesn't sound a lot like the Cybermen. It makes no sense to me why the Cybermen would be trying to wipe out the humans, because by wiping out the humans, that actually gives them a greater chance of going extinct themselves, because they rely on humans to make more Cybermen. Humans are the key to their survival. That's what they rely on. With no humans, there can't be any Cybermen. Why are they killing humans? They should be converting them. They should be trying to preserve this life, not destroying them. I feel that in recent years, it's not just this story, the Cybermen have been essentially just used as Daleks, mainly because I think the writers and the producers prefer the Cybermen to the Daleks, because the Cybermen look cooler. They're big metal men. They look threatening, they look imposing, they look a lot cooler. Daleks just kind of trundle along. We've seen in stories like Dalek and the Parting of the Ways of the new series that Daleks really can be threatening. However, I think most producers get a bit lazy and just think that rather than in a narrative and directorial way make the Daleks look threatening, it's just a lot easier to make them look threatening with the Cybermen, which is why I think the Cybermen have been merged more into Daleks over time. However, that's very detrimental to the idea of the Cybermen and what makes them such a good villain. They're not just disposable metal men version of Daleks, they're actually much more interesting. They're a villain that have a twisted idea, but in a way their aim is to preserve the universe, to keep it flourishing in a twisted way, because they think to make it flourish is to make them into Cybermen. Really, they're doing good. Well, they're not doing good, but in their heads they're doing good. They're making it flourish. The whole idea is about preserving, not destroying. I think when you've got a whole finale based on the core crux that the Cybermen have wiped out most of humanity by wanting to destroy them, and the whole plan of the Cybermen is that the lone Cyberman says they want to ascend and destroy the universe. This isn't Cybermen I'm watching, and I think it's quite detrimental because they don't seem like Cybermen. They feel like Daleks, and therefore I just wasn't a big fan of the Cybermen in this episode because they didn't seem like Cybermen to me. This episode missed what makes the Cybermen so good, and it just made them very boring and just disposable. The thing is that maybe I'm proved wrong, because this whole war carrier of Cybermen, you know, where did these Cybermen come from? They would have needed humans for that. So maybe all the humans that they thought were destroyed were actually made into Cybermen. You know, that's a potential there. And maybe some of my problems with this episode will actually be answered and there won't be problems anymore. However, even if that were true, Ashad, the name of the lone Cyberman, he does say that he wants to destroy the universe, and therefore that's just not the ideas of a Cyberman for me. So even if all the new Cybermen on the war carrier were revealed to be the humans and that they weren't destroyed that we thought, the goals of the Cybermen still is to destroy the universe, unless he's bluffing, but that just seems needlessly complicated, and I can't see them going that way. It just annoys me because the Cybermen are so good villains. You've got episodes like Word Enough in Time of the new series, and even Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel actually portrayed this very well, is that the Cybermen want to preserve life. They don't want to destroy humans, they want to take them in and make them like them. You know, it's pointless them destroying the humans. That's not their game, that's the Daleks' aim. And I feel that you're really cheapening the Cybermen and making them much weaker. I do have another bone to pick with the Cybermen, and that's the fact that we've got the 2006 Russell T Davies Cybermen back, the Cybermen. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the design, although I know a lot of people are, and to be fair, they are nostalgia for a lot of people, so I understand why a lot of people like them. And to be honest, they had a good run from 2006 to 2013. That's quite a good run they had there, and that's quite a good run for a Cyberman design. They had their go in the sunlight for both the 10th Doctor and most of the 11th Doctor's eras. However, in Nightmare in Silver, they were replaced with a new design, and I think that that new design, it seemingly took over. We should not be seeing the 2006 Cybermen again after Nightmare in Silver when they were replaced with a new design. It annoyed me in the Doctor Falls when we saw them again, and it annoys me here as well, even more so because we don't see any Nightmare in Silver Cybermen in sight. It's not just because I prefer the Nightmare in Cybermen design to the Cyber Cybermen, which I do. I think they look a lot more humanoid and that's why I like them, but also that's just the current Cyberman design. If you want to get in some new Cybermen and you want to show some old Cybermen which are the relics of the Cybermen, show the Nightmare in Silver ones, don't show the Cybers ones. Those are from ages ago, and it just feels like they're trying to wipe out this design, which I myself didn't have a massive problem with, to be honest. And it's even weirder because these new Cybermen are based off the designs of Nightmare in Silver in terms of the torso. So why not have the two Cybermen either side of Ashad be Nightmare in Silver Cybermen? Why are the two Cybermen either side as well as the Cyberdromes Cyber Cybermen, despite the fact that these Cybermen were retired back in 2013? It just annoys me that they're bringing back this design. A nitpick for sure, but it just annoyed me a bit. Yes, I thought Ashad was much better as the lone Cyberman. I talked about in my Haunting of Villa Diodati review that I thought he was a bit weak. He was too emotional for me, way too emotional. When he's throwing stuff off the table and he's roaring, it's just a bit funny. He was too emotional for a Cyberman in my opinion, and I thought the actor behind it was just far too angry, far too generic, and wasn't creepy in the slightest, despite the design being creepy. Still not perfect. However, I think he is better in this episode. However, I don't like him talking about wanting to destroy the universe, as I said before. He seems to be falling into the cyber leader role. I wish he'd just be the cyber leader, to be honest. He doesn't need to be this weird Ashad lone Cyberman character. They were going to have the cyber leader. I saw an image the other day of the new Cyberman design, but with black handlebars and earmuffs, like the cyber leader of Revenge of the Cyberman, and it looks so sleek. So it will annoy me if we never see that design of cyber leader and we just are stuck with Ashad instead. But I thought he was pretty good, better than the Haunting of Villa Diodati's portrayal of him. Overall, the Cybermen, they just didn't do much, and I think this story just generally really misses the point of the Cybermen, which unfortunately for an episode titled Ascension of the Cybermen, I just can't really ignore. This episode does have a weird plot involving Brendan as an Irish police officer. Now this is very weird, and it's very weirdly inserted into this episode. It kind of comes at random moments and it doesn't really flow with the actual story. I imagine it will have something to do with the finale. I mean, obviously it will. However, it just felt very out of place. What I think it is that Brendan is a Time Lord who has used the chameleon arch to make himself human. He's lived out a human life, and everyone else is a Time Lord. However, at the end, they're reinstating his memories using the chameleon arch and turning him back into a Time Lord. This is the chameleon arch used by the Doctor in Human Nature Family of Blood, and by the Roof Doctor most recently in Fugitive of the Jejune. At the end, I did kind of think they were converting him into a Cyberman. However, on the second watch, it's pretty obvious the chameleon arch. So that's pretty interesting. However, it's all to do with the Time Lords, so it felt kind of out of place with this episode that's mainly about the Cybermen. However, I do call that this guy, Brendan, he's got to be the Timeless Child, isn't he? Yeah, just before I get on to other things, I think I'll just mention the new Cyberman design. I quite like it. It looks much better on screen than it does in images, I will say, because in images I wasn't amazingly impressed with it. I like that it's going back to the big earmuffs which are used in stories such as The Invasion, Revenge of the Cybermen, Earthshock, Attack of the Cybermen, and Last in Silver Nemesis. I like that design of Cybermen. My favourite design of the Cybermen are the ones from Revenge of the Cybermen, those I think tied with the Telos Cybermen. I really like that design, so I like the fact that this is paying homage to it. And while I didn't like the outline of the face and the kind of almost sideburny stuff on the face in pictures, I think it actually works really well on screen. The torso I'm not a big fan of though. I like the fact it's keeping in with the Nightmare in Silver torso because I quite like that torso. However, I don't like the lower section of the torso with loads of the lines spouting outwards. I think the more rigid horizontal design of the Nightmare in Silver Cyberman would have suited this design best, and I think the spikes on the arms and shoulders are just a bit overkill. I just don't think they need to be there. But overall, the Cybermen design, it has my pluses. And I think seeing them in the next time trailer, yeah, they do look quite threatening and they do look quite cool. Episode's pace is really good, as I said. Everything seems to be happening. I think all the supporting characters are pretty good and they perform pretty well. However, none of them have a bigger role for me to really mention them, to be honest. However, they all play their parts reasonably well. I think they all feel pretty scared of the Cybermen, and I like the fact that the Doctor and Ryan and Yaz and Graham are all split up. I think this works best, especially for Yaz and Graham, who get a lot to do, and that's very good, although I'll talk about them in a bit. But yeah, the supporting cast, they're all pretty good. Pacing is really good, as I said. Yeah, I think that this episode is shot very well. I think the director Jamie Magnus-Stone, he's been good so far this series, and I think he does good again here. I think the music's pretty good by Segun Akinola. The Cyberman theme, I thought it was a bit cringy on first watch. However, on a second watch, it is kind of warming to me. It's no match for the Cybermen themes, the 60s, the 80s and Murray Gold's theme. However, I do think it is growing on me. Let's talk about the TARDIS team then. We've got Yaz, Ryan and Graham. Now I'll talk about Yaz and Graham because I thought they were much improved. Yaz has a few moments, however once again not as many moments as I thought on first watch. She is quite good when independent, and I think her and Graham are actually quite a good pairing. She seems quite reckless. Her deciding to bring the war carrier of Cybermen into the boundary, it is the boundary, not the barrier as I miscalled it earlier on in the review, was very reckless, and I think that she is going a bit of an arc that is going to get her killed. However, I thought Mandic Bill was quite good. Graham Bradley Walsh is pretty good as well. I thought he had a lot more to do than previous episodes, and it really showed. I thought he had the best interactions with all the rest of the supporting cast and was just very good in an episode which is quite light on the Doctor. Graham filled that hole. Ryan easily gets the least to do. When you see that he's going to go off the Doctor, you think, oh yeah, Ryan's going to get more to do in this episode. But actually he gets the least to do out of anyone. That was a bit disappointing, for me at least, because he really felt like a spare part and did nothing in this episode. But yeah, he's there, toasting goes fine. And then the Doctor then, Jodie Whittaker. I thought she was very good this time out. Her moments where she's shouting at the companions to get away, I thought were really good. Her confrontation with the Cybermen weren't cringy like her confrontation with the Daleks in Resolution. And her annoyance of Ryan, her worry about the Cybermen and her worry for the human race, she seemed right into it. She was like, oh, you know, don't mind us, just ask us how we can help. And then she was like, oh, I don't need your backstory. And she was like, oh, you're humans, they'll convert you, get out of here. I thought she was really quite authoritative and really good, actually, Jodie Whittaker. I enjoyed her in this episode, and it was so much better than the bumbling fool we got in Resolution. However, one thing I will note, and it seems to be something that only happens in Chibnall scripts and in no other scripts, the Doctor says fam again. You know, guys know how much I hate the Doctor saying fam and the TARDIS team being referred to as fam. It's one of the reasons I hate Resolution. When the Doctor says gang, extended fam, I literally want to kill myself. It is so cringe, and despite her saying it in Spyfall Part 1, she hasn't said it in the rest of the series, which has been so nice. Yet she said it in this one, which really takes you out of the episode, and it just seems to be a Chibnall thing. Yeah, Jodie Whittaker, she's very good in this episode. I think I should talk about the ending. The Doctor gets to the boundary and finds the boundary seems to be a portal to Gallifrey. Now, I actually called this, watching the episode, I thought, that's going to be a portal potentially to a way of entering the bubble universe that Gallifrey was put in, and the events of the Day of the Doctor. And I actually called that, which I was quite proud of myself for calling. And she sees Gallifrey destroyed, and then the Master shows up. And just instantly, we weren't sure whether Sacha Dhawan was going to reappear as the Master in this finale prior to the credits being announced. However, there was a character called Barak Stemus, the actor, which is an anagram of Master is back, and yeah, it's pretty obvious Sacha Dhawan was going to appear in this as a Master, which he does. But him just jumping through the portal and saying, was that a good entrance? I mean, Sacha Dhawan's just so good as the Master. He was so good in Spyfall, and I'm so glad he's coming back for the finale. Yes, overall, I think Ascension of the Cybermen. Now, this is merely a first part, so most of my problems could probably easily be rectified with the second part next week, and so most of the stuff I'm saying in this review could all be a load of rubbish. However, this episode, I mean, it was fine. I think it's pretty good as a first part, but as a story in itself, which I guess it isn't really, but giving what looks like going to be more of a Gallifrey surrounded episode next week, the Cybermen will probably take a bit of a back burner, unfortunately, and that means that this was the main Cybermen episode, and unfortunately the Cybermen don't really do much. The episode looks great, has a good score, paced well, performances from the supporting cast and Jodie Whittaker acts her socks off. However, I think the Cybermen as a whole didn't do much, weren't a threat, and I think the whole idea of the Cybermen wanting to destroy the universe and wanting to destroy life rather than preserve it, I just can't get over that. That's not the Cybermen. And it's not just a problem with this episode, it's a problem I've had with many a Cybermen story over the last few years, but they're turning them into Daleks. The Cybermen should be wanting to preserve life, not destroy it. That's what's so interesting about them. That's what separates them from villains like the Daleks. And hearing a Cyberman say they want to destroy the universe and them killing these last surviving humans rather than trying to convert them makes no sense, especially for the plot. You know, these are the last surviving humans running away. Why are the Cybermen trying to hunt them down? It would make sense if they want to hunt them down to convert them. They want to convert all humans. That's why they start the war in the first place. But surely, why would the Cybermen be bothered about killing these a random group of humans that aren't a threat to their plans? You know, surely he would be focusing more so on his ascension and not trying to destroy this random group of humans, which is just gonna cause them more trouble, and it really isn't worth it. It would make sense if they were to convert them, but seeing them just want to kill them, it just made the Cybermen's plan feel rather pointless. These Cybermen aren't acting like Cybermen, and it's made the Cybermen feel boring, and it hasn't made them feel like Cybermen. It's kind of taken away everything that makes the Cybermen feel so good as villains. As overall, I thought it was a decent first part. I'll only be able to properly judge it when the second part comes out, so as I said, take my thoughts in here as a pinch of salt. But mainly, I think the Cybermen were pretty misused. However, I think all the performances, the Doctor, especially Jodie Whittaker, was very good, and it certainly sets up some very interesting things. As a story in its own right, it certainly wasn't as good as The Haunting of Villa Diodati. I give Ascension of the Cybermen a 7 out of 10. I was toying with a 7.5, however I gave Haunting of Villa Diodati a 7.5, and it was not as good as that episode. So yeah, a 7 for Ascension of the Cybermen. However, join me next week for the final episode of Series 12, The Timeless Children. The Doctor, the Master, the Companions, all on Gallifrey, with a meeting between the Master and the Cybermen. The Cybermen invading Gallifrey. The answer to the Timeless Child. Will the other Doctor show up? Will a companion die? All these things gonna happen. We don't know, but it's certainly sure to be action-packed. So join me next week for The Timeless Children. I'm very apprehensive of this episode. I'm worried it'll be a bit overstuffed. It's got all this stuff to do. Gallifrey, the Master, the Cybermen, and if it does decide to have the other Doctor in it, I do fear that the Cybermen will go into the background a bit and won't get much screen time. And I feel that if they do try and bring in the other Doctor, it won't feel that satisfying. But you know, I'll just have to watch it with hope, and hope that it is ultimately a satisfying conclusion to all of Series 12. So yes, join me next week for The Timeless Children. But yes, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, drop a sub and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. Obviously only one review left of docu-series 12, being The Timeless Children. And after that, I probably will be taking a break a bit because I've got my GCSEs. However, there will be some videos on the way, so just stay tuned for those. But yes, thank you guys for watching. And of course, a goodbye. The Ascension is only just beginning. I gotta hand it to Chibnall. He truly has achieved the impossible. I never truly thought that Hellbent would be displaced as the worst episode of Doctor Who ever. Yet this madman really did it. He achieved the impossible. Chris Chibnall. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Series 12 review of Doctor Who. This week we're taking a look at the 10th and final episode of Doctor Who Series 12, titled The Timeless Children. It's funny, isn't it, when I spoke at the end of my Ascension of the Cybermen review and I talked about a few things that I was worried about this finale. I didn't genuinely think that every single thing I was worried about would actually happen. Every single thing I thought could go wrong went wrong. Every single bit. Wow. That was quite the soul-crushing experience. Now, I didn't catch this episode live. I was actually out eating Italian food, actually. And I got a text from my friend Henry, and he says, Doctor Who is shit. Chris Chibnall has ruined Doctor Who. And obviously I hadn't seen the episode at the time. I was like, oh, to be fair, he hasn't been a big fan of this series. I have, for the most part, thought this series was pretty good. I kind of took what he said with a pinch of salt, and just kind of thought, you know, yes, he said it was terrible. But, you know, going into it with an open mind, let's see what I can like. And I came out of it. Man, he was right. He was right. Well, usually, I wait about a week in order to record my reviews. I watch the episode a second time around. However, this, I'm recording it on the Monday, the day after The Timeless Children went out. I wanted my opinions to be fresh. And to be honest, I just do not ever want to see The Timeless Children again. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. It was crap. It was shite. The worst episode of Doctor Who ever, and I don't say that lightly. There have been a few contenders. Hellbent, Resolution, Can You Hear Me? Fucking Kill the Moon. But this episode, I think, truly achieved the impossible, like I said before. Because Hellbent is awful. It's a story where the Doctor goes back to Gallifrey. Gallifrey is completely wasted. The Time Lords are made a joke of. It all boils down to the Doctor wanting to save Clara. Oh, Doctor and Clara, aren't they a wonderful team? The Doctor shoots a Time Lord, completely out of character. The whole hybrid arc is just left unresolved. And Clara's exit is utterly ruined. And that terrible.
Yet
the man Chris Chibnall actually wrote an episode worse than that. And I think why this episode is worse than Hellbent, and I wasn't sure. Well, after I immediately watched it, I was like, that is awful, but is it worse than Hellbent? And then I thought about it and I said yes. Yes, it is. Because I think this episode does one thing that Hellbent doesn't do. And that's that it actually makes previous stories worse. And I'm not just talking about the immediate stories around it. Obviously, Hellbent has a devastating effect on stories such as Heaven Sent and Face the Raven. But a story like this actually genuinely ruins stories that I really liked years prior, decades prior. And for that, it just really has to be the worst episode of Doctor Who, doesn't it? I'll just get into a quick synopsis if you can really explain what this episode is actually about. So we open up at the end of Ascension of the Cybermen. The Master, he's come through the boundary, he's like, take my hand. And the Doctor goes into the boundary, into a destroyed Gallifrey. And goes into the Matrix, and the Master's like, timeless child thing, yep, find out. and the Doctor goes into the Matrix and finds out what the Timeless Child is. Spoilers, the Doctor's the be-all, end-all, everything in the universe, and there was about an inconceivable amount of regenerations before Hartnell, so exactly what I wanted from the resolution of this arc. And other than that, the Master tries to strike a deal with the Cybermen, which goes tits up for the Cybermen when Ashad is outsmarted by the Master and is essentially shrunken by the TCE. The Master takes control of the Cybermen, turns them into some Time Lord Cybermen hybrids, which are all pretty easily destroyed and blown up. And the companions all survive. They don't do much in this story. They escape some Cybermen that mysteriously disappear. Yeah, the Cybermen are wasted here, and then do nothing for the rest of the story. And the Master seemingly blow up with it. It sounds that I was not saying much about it in that synopsis, but really that's all that really happens in this story. It's very poor and nothing happens. And I think even if you separate all the Timeless Child stuff from this episode, I think you're still stuck with a really crap finale and a really crap payoff for this finale and the setup. And I think the Timeless Child just makes it even worse. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room then. The Timeless Child. I fucking hated it, to put it lightly. Now, I don't know what I wanted the Timeless Child to be, but this certainly wasn't it. I like the idea that the Doctor was just some randomer on Gallifrey, who wanted more than just to observe, who wanted to see the universe, so stole a TARDIS and went to see it, and then decided to help along the way with each and every planet or time period that seemed to be in a struggle. The Doctor would be there to help. I like the fact that the Doctor isn't anyone special. The Doctor could have been anyone. The Doctor was just that one Time Lord that thought, no, I don't want to just observe. I want to do more. I want to help. I want to see the beauty of the universe. Just went out there. Isn't that what makes the Doctor's character so great? Oh, no, not if you ask Chris Chibnall. It turns out that the Doctor isn't actually Gallifreyan. The Doctor was some random child that could never die, would keep on regenerating over and over again. And the Time Lords took that child, took its ability to regenerate and injected it into themselves, and then reprogrammed the child after doing various things that we aren't aware of, into being a child again, and live out the life of the Doctor. I fucking hate this. As I said before, the Doctor is just some Gallifreyan who just left because the Doctor was bored and wanted to see the universe. The Doctor isn't the be-all end-all of Time Lords. The Doctor isn't the person that literally gave the Time Lord the ability to regenerate. Fuck off. No. The Doctor is not the be-all end-all of the whole Time Lords. No. I'm sorry, but no. That is not who the Doctor is. Who thought this was a good idea? Who thought it was a good idea to make the Doctor some big cosmic player in the universe? The Doctor isn't your humble traveller who you're travelling with. No, the Doctor is the most important being in the universe, because the most important species in the universe got everything that made them from the Doctor. What? I cannot believe this. I cannot believe the clumsiness of this. Who thought this was a good idea? Clearly some people don't quite understand what makes the Doctor, what makes the Doctor such a fascinating character. The Doctor isn't Rassilon. The Doctor isn't Omega. The Doctor is quite simply the Doctor. Never cruel or cowardly, traveller passing through, helping out where they can. The Doctor isn't the be-all end-all of the universe. But that's not my only problem with it. I also have a major problem with it being before Hartnell. Personally, I just think it wrecks the continuity if you have Doctors before Hartnell. He is the first Doctor, plain and simply, he just is. I hate the idea that you have multiple Doctors before Hartnell. Like, I'm sorry, but it just adds unnecessary stuff to the canon. Are we going to see any of these Doctors? No. So what is the point? What is the point of adding pointless regenerations before Hartnell for no reason. And this actually ruins stories. This ruins stories that I actually liked. I'll give you an example, for instance. How about The Time of the Doctor? A story that if you've been watching this channel for a little while and you follow me on Twitter, you will know that I very much like. It's Matt Smith's last story, and I really like it, especially all the stuff to do with him getting old on Trenzalore. So if you haven't seen that story, the Doctor is growing old on Trenzalore because it is revealed that he is in his final body. He's used all of his 12 regenerations, and therefore he's dying. As essential as that, he's used the rest of his life. Even though he knew he was dying, he didn't run. He stayed on Trenzalore and he defended that planet until his last breath. And he's going to die, but Clara pleads to the Time Lords and says, the Doctor, you know, he has saved you countless times again. The least you could do would be to regrant him a new regeneration cycle. And then what happens is the crack opens up and the regeneration energy goes into the Doctor. It's such a beautiful, beautiful turn of events, seeing the Doctor face his death and then having his eyes widened as a new regeneration cycle is in him. Doctor has life anew, and I love parts of that story. It even bleeds into Matt Smith's regeneration speech. Just before his regeneration speech, he talks about a whole new regeneration cycle, and he talks about, or just remember who you used to be. All this stuff. A lovely episode. I love The Time of the Doctor. But actually, when you think about it, the Time of the Doctor is bullshit with the knowledge that we gained in The Timeless Children. Because the Doctor could always regenerate. The Doctor never had a limit. Because the Doctor could regenerate and regenerate and regenerate and regenerate and did not have a limit. Therefore, how could the Doctor have been near to death on Trenzalore, and the only way he survived was to have been given a new regeneration cycle if he never had a limit to regenerations in the first place? To me, it ruins part of that story. I mean, I still like The Time of the Doctor. It's not ruined the story for me. I put a tweet out saying that it ruined the story for me. I was being a bit hyperbolic there. You know, it's not ruined the story for me. But I think it just makes that story worse by proxy, because all the emotion of the Doctor dying and thinking these are his last legs, yet defending the planet anyway, and the emotional scene where Clara faces the crack and the Time Lords say we're giving you a new regeneration cycle, is weakened because ultimately the Doctor could have regenerated anyway. This is bullshit. One thing doing this to the Doctor and ruining the Doctor as a character, taking something fundamental to the character of the Doctor and ripping it away. But then there's another to ruin previous stories. And the thing is that this makes very little sense, the whole Timeless Child idea, and opens a heck of a lot of plot holes. The Time of the Doctor is just one of them. I saw someone comment on the Doctor's cot in A Good Man Goes to War, and how that's supposedly the Doctor's cot from Gallifrey. But seeing as the Doctor was never born on Gallifrey, how the fuck did he get that cot? You know, you look at a story like The Name of the Doctor, it shows William Hartnell being the one to steal the TARDIS. He was the one who stole the TARDIS, the very first TARDIS. It looked like a TARDIS, it didn't look like a police box. He was the Doctor who left Gallifrey. Yet apparently there were loads of Doctors who left Gallifrey, the Roof Doctor being one of them, or so it seems. It's never given concrete proof as to what the bloody hell the Roof Doctor is. However, from what I can assemble from this episode, the Roof Doctor was before Hartnell. And the thing is, that makes no sense, because the Roof Doctor had a TARDIS in the form of a police box. Yet we know that the reason the TARDIS is a police box is because it lands in the 1960s and gets stuck. That is referenced in the very first episode, An Unearthly Child, with William Hartnell. And when he is shown stealing the TARDIS, it is not a police box. Yet somehow it's a police box before that with the Roof Doctor. So explain that to me. I bet Chris Chibnall can't quite explain that. I bet he can't explain The Time of the Doctor. I bet he can't explain a heck of a lot of other plot holes. But that's all fine, because he showed the Morbius Doctors. Now to me, this just seems like the classic TARDIS used in Hellbent. It's the same idea. Oh, throw a load of classic stuff and throw in the Morbius Doctors, throw in the prison at the end that had a striking resemblance to the prison in Sharda. And all of a sudden, people will like this episode. And the thing is that I think it had been pretty well established by canon that the Morbius Doctors, you know, from Hartnell to Baker, is the Doctor, and the rest of the generations are Morbius. That is the headcanon, and that has been accepted by fans since the 70s, and even Big Finish, I believe, wrote an audio saying that those were regenerations of Morbius. So why are you now saying that those are the Doctor? And it's only for Chibnall to say, I didn't add it, this has been an arc that has been spanning since the 70s. Fuck off. No, it hasn't. It had been widely accepted that these were regenerations of Morbius. You can't try and sway me to say this bullshit Timeless Child arc was there from the start just because there were the Morbius Doctors and you showed the Morbius Doctors. No, I'm sorry, but no, you are wrong. Timeless Child is something that you decided to create to leave your mark on the show, or at least that's what I think it did, because to be honest, I do not see the benefits of it at all. People keep on talking about how it adds the mystery back into the Doctor, adds the Doctor Who into the Doctor. I'm sorry, and to be honest, it's just your opinion. If you feel that way, then that's fine. Obviously, everyone's allowed to have their opinion, but I cannot really see that argument, if I'm being honest, or at least not with the information I have at the moment. Because to me, this does exactly the opposite of putting the mystery back in Doctor Who. This saps all the mystery back into Doctor Who. Oh, who was the Doctor before An Unearthly Child? We didn't really know too much about him. Boom! Oh no, now you do. The Doctor was a being who gave the Time Lords all their ability to regenerate. He regenerated and regenerated and regenerated until his mind was set back to a child and lived out his life on Gallifrey and did various regenerations working for the Time Lords. Oh yeah, that really puts the mystery back into Doctor Who, does it? No, it doesn't. We know so much more about the Doctor now than we did before. I just like the Doctor to be a humble traveller, but clearly that's not allowed, because the Doctor needs to be the be-all end-all of the universe, and we need to know every single thing about the Doctor. You know, this idea, even if the Doctor, you know, the Doctor's the be-all end-all of the universe, you know, like, that contradicts so much. The Timeless Child, as I've said, contradicts so much lore. So many episodes, not just old episodes, newer episodes, episodes in the middle of the show's run. I don't even care. There are episodes that are contradicted because of the Timeless Child. The Time of the Doctor is one. An Unearthly Child is one. The Name of the Doctor is one. A Good Man Goes to War is one. And I can assure you I could find many others. The Deadly Assassin is another one. This has contradicted so much, and what I can't even understand, and this is the thing that, if anything, angers me the most, is that Chris Chibnall has added this that makes the Doctor the be-all end-all of the universe. The Doctor is no longer a humble traveller. The Doctor is the most important being of the whole universe, and it takes something fundamental away from the character of the Doctor and slightly ruins a part of the character of the Doctor. It also ruins a lot of older stories, and a lot more stuff makes very little sense and makes no sense. A lot of plot holes are created and it ruins a lot of old stories. The Time of the Doctor, that story is a little bit worse now just because of this. But not only that, is this thing that he's introduced that achieved all that has no impact on the Doctor going forward. It impacts the show of the past so fucking much that it ruins parts of the show. It makes it quite incomprehensible, and there are so many plot holes, yet going forward it has very little impact. There's even a scene where the Doctor's like, oh, I don't know who I am, and the Roof Doctor says, you know who you are the Doctor. In some sense I like that, because, you know, it's a nice scene and all that, but when you sit and think about it, Roof is essentially saying this big revelation actually means nothing going forward. So what was the fucking point of all this? What was the point of ruining some of the parts of the Doctor, ruining parts of the character of the Doctor? For nothing. And also, something that also angered me is that if you take the Timeless Child plotline out of this episode, the episode doesn't change. So all this ruining of past of the show, of the Doctor as a character, actually has no reason to be in this story and has no effect on the Doctor going forward as a character. So what was the fucking point? Why the fuck was But did Chibnall do it? Honestly, I'm none the wiser. I have no idea. And it's just things like the Morbius doctors that he really tries to persuade you. He really tries to get people on his side. And you say, no, this has been established. Up my arse has it been established. You have ruined parts of the show. You have ruined a part of the Doctor. And all for no reason. Honestly, after yesterday's episode, I'm almost glad that I didn't record it yesterday, because if you think I'm angry now, you didn't want to see me after the episode. I literally couldn't get to sleep last night because I was too worried, thinking about all the plot holes, thinking about all the damage this has done to the show, that I genuinely couldn't sleep. Chris Chibnall, I don't know what his agenda is, but honestly, I thought Moffat was bad. I thought Hellbent was bad. But oh Christ, oh bloody Christ. And the thing is, like I said, he does all this damage, and ultimately it's pointless because it has no effect in the story and no effect on the Doctor going forward. So what's the fucking point? This is the worst arc ever, not just in Doctor Who, in any fucking show I think I've ever seen. You're speaking about retcons. You need to think about what is gained and what is lost. And in my opinion, a heck of a lot is lost and very little, if anything, is gained that is positive. And people are talking about, oh, this Christian has made everything canon. Maybe I'm just fake. Maybe I'm just fake. But to be honest, I don't see how adding loads of regenerations before Hartnell makes fan films and fan productions and comics canon. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but if you are writing a fan production, you are most likely not writing it before William Hartnell, are you? You're writing it post-Daleks, post-Cybermen, post-Master in some instances, but not always. You're not writing it before Hartnell. So how has Chris Chibnall made fan films canon? I do not know. The Timeless Child arc was a shit show. It was a fucking shit show. It has ruined the Doctor partly as a character, taking something that is so integral to why I like the Doctor and took it away. The Doctor's now not a humble traveller, but the be-all, end-all of the universe. Oh, great. And then there are a load of random regenerations before Hartnell. Brilliant. And the Doctor could always regenerate. Brilliant. And it ruins other stories like An Unearthly Child, The Time of the Doctor, The Name of the Doctor, The Deadly Assassin, the list goes on. Why? Why did Chris Chibnall have to do this? Why doesn't he have a script editor? Why doesn't he have someone in check who will stop him from writing such stuff? I wouldn't say I feel sorry for Moffat, but just imagine if you wrote this very episode. People would hate it. So why are people hating it under Chibnall? This isn't me assuming anything. I genuinely don't know why people don't hate this under Chibnall, because I know they'd hate it under Moffat. Honestly, I hope that The Timeless Child just becomes like the TV movie. The whole I'm half human on my mother's side shit in the TV movie. That people say that the TV movie's canon, but somehow the half human stuff established in the TV movie, it just isn't canon. You know, yes, it's established in the TV movie, but it just isn't canon anymore. The Doctor isn't half human because that's a stupid idea and it just isn't canon anymore. Everyone considers that not to be canon. And I truly hope, and I don't think it will, but in my mind anyway, the Timeless Child arc isn't canon. Or at least in my idea, because it's an idea I fucking hate. And you should know why, because I just explained why I hate this idea. It ruins parts of the Doctor. It ruins parts of old stories. And just imagine if you're a new viewer and you're like, oh yeah, I quite like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I've heard there are other Doctors before her. How many Doctors are there? Try explaining that in a way that won't put them completely off the show. I'll wait. I think that was a long enough rant, I think it's fair to say, about the Timeless Child. And this is the reason why this episode is truly the worst. Because it's not only the Timeless Child stuff. You take all of this Timeless Child bullshit that I despised out of this episode, and this episode is still shit. It's shit as a concluding part to a finale revolving the Cybermen. Yet the Cybermen aren't really in this story that much. You know Ashad the lone Cyberman, you know how he was a pretty fearsome villain who they were building up? Well, he's just gone in a scene played for laughs. It's like, oh, he's pretty intimidating, but oh no, now he's gone. Now it's the Master leading the Cybermen, because we really haven't had enough Master and Cyberman stories recently, have we? No, we've had so many fucking Master and Cybermen stories recently. Why can't the Cybermen just be their own villain? Why do they always have to be patsies to the Master? I don't know, but clearly the Doctor Who writers, regardless of who they are, just don't like the Cybermen and want them to either be Daleks or they want them to be patsies of the Master. To be honest, I don't know what's worse. And the thing is that the Cybermen explain their plan, and it's fucking awful. They want to become robots, essentially. And just because the Master says that this is a fucking awful plan, doesn't take away from the fact that the Cybermen's general, overarching plan for this whole finale was bullshit and ridiculous and awful, and I hate it. The Cybermen should not be trying to turn themselves into robots. This is similar to fucking Destiny of the Daleks. The Daleks aren't robots, neither are the Cybermen. The Cybermen want to convert humans. They want to sustain life. They don't want to become fucking robots. And I don't care whether in your script you actually acknowledge the fact that their plan is fucking retarded. Because ultimately, the plan for this whole finale, whether you acknowledge it or not, is still pretty fucking retarded and is not a good plan for the Cybermen at all. It's fucking shit, and I just wish that the Cybermen could get some good writing, could get a plan that is actually a Cybermen-esque plan and isn't the bullshit that's in this episode. The Cybermen, after that big cliffhanger at the end of last week, pretty much do nothing. Yaz and Graham escape wearing the suits of the Cybermen, and I thought, yeah, that's really neat. Reminds me where Hartnell hides inside the Dalek. Kind of reminded me of that. However, they escape the ship pretty easy, and the other Cybermen are defeated pretty easy. But you'd think surely they wouldn't have defeated all those Cybermen, because there was billions upon billions of Cybermen on that ship. But no, some of the Cybermen just disappear. I'm not really sure where they go. It's a pretty big continuity error. Like, yeah, they defeat some of the Cybermen, but where the fuck did the other Cybermen go that were supposed to be enclosing on them? They just go. They just disappear. And so they're a threat of the Cybermen. As soon as Ashad is destroyed and just goes like the drop of the hat, the Cybermen threat is fucking non-existent. All the build-up in 2 previous episodes about the Cybermen is just gone. It is just gone in this story. Because the story doesn't care about the Cybermen, it's far more interested in the bullshit surrounding the Timeless Child to actually give 2 hoots about the Cybermen. Because it's not that the Cybermen are some of the best villains in sci-fi. No, it's not. It's not like they have a pretty clear plan set out and pretty clear goals of their race. It's not like the Cybermen shouldn't be trying to turn themselves into robots. And it's not like the Cybermen should be the main villains of your story and are just degraded to patsy foot soldiers of the Master. So all those Cybermen mysterious disappear, Ashad is destroyed in a hilarious way, and their plot is bullshit and hilarious, and I hate it. And then the Master creates Cyber Time Lords. He calls them Cyber Masters, but to be honest, that's a bit of a shit name. Cyber Lords, I think, is a lot cooler. But do they really deserve the dignity of a cool name? I don't think so. So Cyber Masters, it is. So the Master somehow creates Cyber Time Lords, Unstoppable Cybermen. Is that an interesting idea? Yes. Has it been pretty established that Cybermen can't convert Time Lords, otherwise they would have converted the Doctor? Yes, but there is a line in Nightmare in Silver, so I'll allow it. Is it pretty ridiculous that the Cybermen can regenerate even though the bodies they're using are dead Time Lords? Yep, that makes no sense. However, the idea of Cybermen being able to regenerate, it's incredibly fan-fiction-y, but it's an idea that if given legs could have been really interesting. But no, they don't even kill anyone. They just stand around for a bit and then get destroyed. Fucking hell. The Cybermen in this story get nothing to do. I don't even think they kill anyone apart from one girl at the start. They do nothing. The new Cybermen do nothing. They don't pose much of a threat and then just all mysteriously disappear. The Cybermasters just are a cool concept, but just stand around, do nothing, and then get destroyed. Ashad, the lone Cyberman, he's been built up throughout this three-parter and ultimately is just destroyed in a hilarious way. The Cybermen's plans ultimately result to them just wanting to become robots. The absolute opposite of the Cybermen and what they stand for. So yeah, if you're a Cyberman fan, of which I am one, but if you're a really big Cyberman fan, like if you prefer them to the Daleks and they are your favourite Doctor Who villain, I honestly feel sorry for you that you have to sit through this. Sitting through Dark Water, Death in Heaven, and the Doctor Falls must have felt like watching Tomb of the Cybermen, Warden of Time, and Earthshock, to be honest, compared to this, because the Cybermen just get fucking wasted. Yeah, you know how I said that I thought the Dalek in Resolution was fucking appalling? Yeah, again, he kind of outdid himself with the Cybermen here, so well done. And let's talk about the TARDIS team. I haven't got an amazing amount to say because, to be honest, they barely do anything. There are some nice scenes between Yaz and Graham, almost building up to Yaz dying because she's become a bit reckless. But oh no, Yaz doesn't die. I'll talk about that ending actually, because the Doctor's going to wipe out all organic life on the planet. I don't know why it's such a hard thing to do, because these are Cybermen. The Doctor has had no problem with destroying Cybermen before. However, you know, it does remind me of the scene of Eccleston in The Parting of the Ways, which I do quite like, so I'll give it a pass on this one. However, the Doctor just lets this old guy take the fall. You think, oh, it's going to be Yaz, because they've been building up in an arc that she's become reckless, and I thought, oh, this will be her death. She'll sacrifice herself in a noble sacrifice. But no, that old guy, what's his name, Koshamus? Yeah, he just comes in and sacrifices himself and says some line about how he sent the Cyberium back in time and it was his responsibility, so now it's his responsibility to destroy. Yeah, that could have been an interesting arc, and it would have felt like a complete arc for his character if only this information about him stopping the Cyberium wasn't only first mentioned in the scene before his death. That's not how you write a character. That's not how you write an emotional payoff for a character. That is lazy writing. It should have been a companion, because this episode firmly established that no one dies in Doctor Who. There are no stakes. You have 3 companions. One of them should have died. It was even setting up for one of them to die. But the fact that none of them did, and they let this random old guy, whose story is so underdeveloped, take the fall, just annoys me. It was another thing that this episode just gets so wrong. I will talk about some positives, because I've been incredibly negative in this review. I only have a few. They're very scarce. Sacha Dhawan as the Master is one. Now, I feel sorry for Sacha Dhawan's Master. I feel sorry that he's been put in this era of the show, that he has to perform these scripts, because I thought, does Chris Chibnall actually write well for the Master? And I thought, no, I think he writes not very well for the Master. I mean, not as bad as the Cybermen of the Daleks, heck no, but I think what really makes the Master pretty good is not the writing from Chris Chibnall, hell no. It's Sacha Dhawan's brilliant performance. He just encapsulates the Master. He encapsulates the history. He almost plays it a bit Joker-esque, but he's so fun to watch. He steals the show. Essentially, he's kind of the main character in this story because the Doctor is sidelined for the whole of it. And he carries this story. He's very likeable, even though he's the bad guy. Yet, unlike Missy, you actually feel a threat. His goals, I don't think, are fully understandable. Yeah, Sacha Dhawan's just having so much fun. He was born to play the Master, and I don't know whether he's as good as Delgado, but he's really up there. He's definitely my second favourite Master, at least. He really encapsulates the Master, and he fucking tries so hard to carry this story, but unfortunately it cannot be done. But I think if there's anything to take out of this episode, if there's anything at all that I would rewatch this episode for, it's Sacha Dhawan's master, because he was truly superb and he tries. He also tries to carry it. But you can't carry this shit. No, no one could. But he does try, and he is giving a really good performance. And if there's anything that I would ever return to this episode for, it's Sacha Dhawan's master. Because despite the shit in this episode, he truly was superb. The other two things that I liked, which were only aesthetic things, were the look of the episode and the music. I think K.Flay's been shot rather well. You know, look at Hellbent, and it's an atrocious episode, but Rachel Talalay did a brilliant job of directing K.Flay, and I think Jamie Magnus Stone followed suit. I think he was really good. He made the ruins of K.Flay look beautiful and the burnt colours were crisp. I thought that the rooms inside K.Flay in the Matrix, it just looked really good. And I can't imagine having to direct this script. But he made K.Flay, he made the episode just generally look beautiful. I gotta commend him for that. And Segun Akinola's music. Since he became composer, I've been on and off with Segun Akinola's stuff. However, one thing I can say is that this series he's massively improved. And he was really good in this episode. I was listening to it and I thought this episode may be shite, but his music is really good, actually. I think it's just really nice. It fits all the right moments. I think especially in the poignant scenes, I think his music is really, really nice, actually. And it may be merely aesthetic things, but Jamie Magnus Stone's direction and Segun Akinola's music were very nice in this episode. And those, along with Sacha Dhawan's superb performance as a master, make up the good things for this episode. I think the final thing I will talk about is the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, and unfortunately I don't actually have a lot to say about Jodie Whittaker, and it's not Jodie Whittaker's fault. You know, I don't envy being the Doctor in this time, to be honest. I don't envy being the Doctor in this story, but to be the one that has to carry all the revelations of the Timeless Child that will upset a lot of people. I don't envy Jodie Whittaker for that. And the thing is Sacha Dhawan carries this story, and he really tries. And I feel for Jodie, because she's not given the opportunity to try and give a good performance, because she really has nothing to do in this episode. She's sidelined so much in this episode. The Doctor doesn't really do anything, and all for nothing, because what she's sidelined to do really doesn't have a big part of this episode. It's just to get the Doctor out of it. This episode is a mess. It's a jumbled mess. None of it flows. And I think that Jodie, really, it is a crime, because I feel that she could have had some really good scenes with Sacha Dhawan's master. I feel that she could have really gave a performance, not necessarily equal to Sacha Dhawan, but a really good performance and show the improvement that she's felt this series. However, she just wasn't given an opportunity to. She wasn't given the opportunity to equal Sacha Dhawan because she didn't have the script and she didn't have the screen time. Her Doctor is barely in it, and for a finale, I found that incredibly disappointing. And I do feel sorry for Jodie Whittaker, because if I saw this script and I would be wanting to try and elevate it, and then to realise that you don't have the chance because you have nothing to do, yeah, I'd be a bit pissed off about that. And Jodie has improved this series, but unfortunately she just didn't have anything to do here, which is a shame. So yes, overall, The Timeless Children. Fuck me. I don't want to go over it too much. This raw recording is over 40 minutes long. I've explained my thoughts in detail, but I think what you can probably gather is I didn't like this episode at all. The Timeless Child, I hate it. I hate it all. I hate what it does to the Doctor's character. The Doctor should be a humble traveller, an ordinary Gallifreyan who just wanted more from life, not the be-all end-all of the Time Lords and the universe itself. Hartnell should be the first Doctor. There shouldn't be about a billion regenerations before him. The Doctor should have the regular regeneration limit. The Doctor shouldn't have been able to regenerate, because that ruins parts of the time of the Doctor. It opens so many plot holes regarding the first Doctor and Ruth's Doctor. It ruins parts of the name of the Doctor. It makes no sense. That the unearthly child makes no sense. Parts of the deadly assassin make no sense. And yes, something that's so detrimental to the character of the Doctor and the history of the show, that creates more bad than good, doesn't have a point in this story. Something that's so detrimental as that doesn't have a point in this story and doesn't have a point going forward. To me, the Timeless Child isn't canon. In my head canon, it didn't exist. It's just going to be like the half-human crap in the TV movie. The TV movie's canon, but that isn't. This episode is canon. You can't avoid the fact that it's canon, but in my head canon, and people may not like this, but in my head canon, the Doctor isn't the Timeless Child, because it fundamentally ruins parts of the show and parts of the Doctor's character for me, and it aggravates me so much that someone would do this just to leave a small mark on the show. I'd say that that's all that's wrong with this episode, but taking that enormous history ruining Timeless Child elephant out of the room, this episode is still awful. It's still an awful finale. Cybermen were built up to be a big threat in Haunting of Villa Diodati and Ascension of the Cybermen, as were Ashad, but they're both hilariously disposed of pretty early in the story, and both do nothing. The plot of the Cybermen is crap, and nothing like the Cybermen. And like I said, they get disposed so easily, and these new race of Cybermen don't even do anything. The idea of the Cyber Time Lords, they don't do anything either. They just stand around, don't even kill anyone, and then get destroyed. None of their companions die despite it being built up, and ultimately the fall is given to a random disposable character whose backstory is so lazily written that you just don't even care. The only good things in it are Sacha Dhawan's master, who really tries to carry this story and is superb, but he just can't, unfortunately. The episode looks great as well. The direction by J. Magnus Stone is wonderful, as is the music by Segun Akinola, but Jodie is restricted from giving a good performance because she's utterly sidelined. I could not quite believe, after watching this episode, I could quite not believe what I had watched. I thought Hellbent was bad. I really thought Hellbent was bad, but something that takes so much away from the Doctor's character and makes episodes previous worse by comparison. Episodes that I really liked. Opens up more plot holes, so many more plot holes than it ever dares to answer, and has all of that shafted for an arc that actually has no relevance in the story and no relevance going forward. And ultimately, taking that aside, an episode that is actually such a piss poor way to end of the finale. The Cybermen are disposed. It's the worst appearance of the Cybermen ever. They are disposed of so easily, and this finale is so unsatisfying. I cannot believe what I'd watched. My friend Henry had texted me saying it was going to be shit, but I could not quite believe how bad this truly was. This was awful. I could not quite comprehend it. As I said, this episode kept me up at night just thinking about all the plot holes it did, how much damage it had done to the show. And at the end of the day, you know, if you like this episode, then like it. I have no problem with that. In fact, I wish I was you. I wish I could have liked this episode, but unfortunately I couldn't. If you don't care about canon and you can enjoy this episode, I wish I was you. But unfortunately, I like canon, and I like the previous stories of Doctor Who, and I like the Doctor's character being like this. I loathed all the changes in this episode, and I thought just overall as a finale it was shite as well. You know, I thought Resolution was bad, I thought Hellbent was bad, but this episode is something else. Sacha Dhawan, he tries to save it, but he can't, unfortunately. This episode is truly something else, and this episode is quite fittingly deserving of the title of the worst episode of Doctor Who ever. I give The Timeless Child 1 out of 10, and that's mainly for Sacha Dhawan. And the worst part is that I actually kind of enjoyed this series. It wasn't perfect, no, absolutely not. But I enjoyed parts of this series. It was heading in the right direction. Jodie Whittaker was so much better. Introduced us to one of my, if not up there with my favourite masters. It gave me an episode like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, which is genuinely one of my favourite Doctor Who historicals ever. However, when you end it like this, on an episode such as this, it's hard to look at this series as anything other than shit. And, you know, I am going to review this series as a whole, and I think I probably will maybe have to rewatch all of Series 12 in order to do so, to just refresh my mind of things I actually liked about this series. Because right now, all I can think about is the negativity that this episode brought, and that's a shame for this series to have a cloud cast upon it of all this shit. And Jodie Whittaker could have the best freaking Doctor Who episode ever in Series 13, but it won't matter because this episode exists. I thought Hellbent was bad. But this is something else. Worst episode in its history, that was quite an achievement. Am I looking forward to the special? I don't know if I honestly can say I am, because genuinely last night I was considering never watching Doctor Who again. This episode just angered me so much, to the point that I started thinking of episodes that I genuinely liked and thought, do I like that? Because all I can think about is how the Doctor is now the Timeless Child and how that pisses me off. You know, I won't say that I'll never watch the show again, because ultimately I know full well that I will be watching that special, because that's just the way I am. However, if that special is anywhere near resolution quality, if not worse and more near this quality, I may stop watching the show. Because no matter how many Nikola Tesla's Night of Terrors you may get, they're all going to be overshadowed by something like the Timeless Children. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like, drop a sub and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. As I said, I feel like I'm literally saying this every single time. I've been away for a while, but I'm back. And yeah, more videos. I've actually recorded and planned a lot more videos to come out now. So it's not just this one video and then I'm gone again. I am actually got a lot more videos I'm going to put out now about Doctor Who and some other things. So stay tuned for that if you'd like to watch those. They're actually a bit more interesting, different to the videos I usually like to put out. So I'm very excited for you to see them. But regardless, if you want to see them, you know, subscribe. If you don't. But at the end of the day, thank you guys for watching. And of course, a goodbye.